So, um, imagine hiring a contractor to fix a major structural issue in your house. Like maybe you have a collapsing foundation.
Okay, stressful.
Right. Highly stressful. And the doorbell rings, you open it, and the guy is standing on your porch wielding a massive, ancient, glittering broadsword.
Yeah, I'm locking the door.
Exactly. You lock the door, maybe call the police. I mean, it seems completely unhinged. But, when we try to fix the deepest, most recurring problems in our lives, we expect a clean, modern toolkit.
Right, we want a clinical program.
Yeah, a 10-step program, some productivity hack, or like a sanitized app that manages our issues with push notifications.
Well, we gravitate toward those solutions because they don't really demand anything of our soul. I mean, they offer this surface level illusion of control.
Oh, totally.
But a clinical toolkit is fundamentally designed to manage symptoms, It's
Stress.
not meant to basically alter the landscape of who you are.
And that is exactly why we are doing a deep dive today into a completely different landscape. We're pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources today, the biblical chapter of Isaiah 27, alongside a modern application guide.
And that guide treats this ancient text as really a sophisticated blueprint for psychological and spiritual change.
Right. So our mission today is to first outline the incredibly vivid, almost cinematic imagery of this text. And then we're going to pivot directly into the practical application for your modern life. And we want to keep that application highly focused.
Yeah, the entire discussion is anchored by one core question, which is how can understanding these ancient, brutal, and beautiful metaphors actually strengthen your trust and relationship with God right now, today?
Exactly.
Because we're looking at a framework that moves you from endlessly managing your problems to actually resolving them.
Right. But to understand the framework, we have to start with the raw material of the text itself. And Isaiah 27 just hits you right out of the gate with a cosmic battle.
It really does.
Yeah, verse 1 describes the Lord wielding his, quote, sore and great and strong sword to punish Leviathan. And it calls this creature a piercing and crooked serpent and says, he slays the dragon that is in the sea.
The language there is just deliberately aggressive,
Yeah.
It's total. You have Leviathan, which is this massive, chaotic, completely untamable sea monster.
Right.
And the text doesn't say the monster is, like, fenced in or pushed to another part of the ocean.
No, it's confronted and slain.
Exactly, slain. It's a picture of an ultimate, decisive victory over a terrifying existential threat.
But the whiplash you get in the very next verse is staggering.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're picturing this epic blood-in-the-water clash,
Sure.
right? And then verse 2 immediately shifts the camera to a vineyard of red wine.
It's quite the transition.
It's huge. God goes from a fierce warrior slaying a sea monster to this tender caretaker. He says, I, the Lord, do keep it. I will water it every moment. Lest any hurt it, I will keep it night and day.
Well, the contrast is the point, I think. The text highlights the absolute totality of the care being described. Because watering a vineyard every moment and guarding it night and day, that represents an uninterrupted, almost obsessive level of cultivation.
But my first thought reading that was comparing it to hiring a heavy-duty pest control expert and a master gardener.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Like, you need the exterminator to eliminate the monster tearing up the soil, but you cannot grow a vineyard with a sword. You need the gardener to actually cultivate the life that comes after the threat is gone.
The pest control and gardener analogy is really good, but I think the text pushes it even further.
Oh, how so?
Because you can't actually separate the two roles. The warrior is the gardener.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the sword swinging is part of the gardening process.
Mhm.
Because, you cannot cultivate a delicate vine in a field that's being terrorized by a dragon.
Ah, okay, wow. That makes so much sense. And that becomes incredibly clear as you move into verses 7 through 11, which focus on the people of Jacob.
Yeah.
The imagery shifts to purging and desolation.
Right, the discipline phase.
Yeah, the text asks if God has smitten Israel the same way he smote their enemies. And it says God strikes in measure and stays his rough wind in the day of the east wind.
So it introduces this highly calibrated form of discipline. The purging of Jacob's iniquity is described through the destruction of their false altars.
Chalkstones, right?
Exactly. The stones those altars are beaten into chalk stones. The groves and the images are torn down. It is a complete deconstruction of the things they falsely worshipped.
And it leaves this stark aftermath. Like, the text paints a picture of a defense city becoming desolate, left like a wilderness. It describes calves feeding on withered boughs and women eventually coming to set those broken branches on fire.
It explicitly calls them a people of no understanding.
Right. And then the scope just zooms out for the final sweeping resolution in verses 12 and 13. A great trumpet is blown.
The big finale.
Yeah, the Lord threshes from the river to the stream of Egypt. And it specifies that the children of Israel will be gathered one by one.
Which is such a beautiful detail.
It really is. The perishing from Assyria and the outcasts from Egypt are called to come worship the Lord in the holy mount at Jerusalem.
So, the monster is dead, the altars are crushed to dust, the vineyard is watered, and the scattered, exiled people are brought back. That is the ancient imagery.
Okay, so I am going to play proxy for the listener here for a second, because this is usually where the translation to modern life breaks down.
Fair enough.
Right, because if I'm listening to this while commuting to a high-stress job, or maybe I'm trying to figure out how to stop repeating the same destructive argument with my spouse, my first thought might be, okay, this is a poetic mix of ancient judgment and restoration.
Sure, it sounds very distant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I might genuinely ask, how does a dead sea monster help me on a Tuesday?
That's a great question. And the application source addresses that exact disconnect. Because if you read Leviathan as a literal ancient myth, it is entirely useless to you.
Right.
But Leviathan represents persistent threats. It's the recurring problem. I mean, every person has an issue in their life that refuses to fade with time.
Something you just cannot wait out.
Precisely. The things that just keep circling back no matter how much time passes. The hard truth the application guide pulls from this text is that if a problem keeps coming back in your life, it means it hasn't been handled.
Oof, yeah.
The human brain is naturally wired to prefer managing a problem over slaying it, because slaying requires confrontation. Avoidance conserves immediate energy, even if it mortgages your future peace.
Which brings up the psychology of avoidance. I mean, when we talk about managing a problem instead of eliminating it, it's like structurally ignoring a severe termite infestation by just, putting a fresh coat of paint over the bubbling drywall.
That is a perfect example.
Like, it looks absolutely pristine for a week. You feel like you solved it. But beneath the paint, the structural integrity of your house is actively being eaten away. You are managing the visual aesthetic. You are not fixing the foundation.
And that is the exact mechanism of our own personal leviathans. We avoid the deep, difficult confrontation. We just hope the termites decide to leave.
Which they never do.
Never. But verse 5 of Isaiah 27 offers the alternative. It says, "Or let him take hold of my strength, that he may make peace with me, and he shall make peace with me."
The insight there is so good. Like, peace is not passivity. Peace is the aftermath of decisive action.
Yes.
If we want to strengthen our trust in God, it requires aligning with his approach to these threats. We have to take hold of his strength to permanently eliminate our cycles of avoidance.
Because you don't get peace by ignoring the serpent in the water.
Right. You get peace by addressing it head on.
Trusting God means trusting his method of confrontation. It means acknowledging that some things cannot be negotiated with or managed. They just have to be cut out.
Okay, so let's say the monster is dead. You finally took the sword to the persistent problem. You fumigated the termites. But a dead monster doesn't equal a thriving life, does it?
No, not at all.
You're just left with an empty, bloody beach or a torn-up wall. What actually fills that void?
Well, this is why the immediate pivot to the vineyard in verse 2 is so vital. God doesn't slay the monster and walk away from the barren dirt. He waters the vineyard every moment.
And the translation of that for us is, profound positive outcomes do not happen in a vacuum.
Exactly.
There's this myth that if you just stop doing the bad, like you just stop yelling, stop doom scrolling, stop whatever your vice is, your life will magically become healthy.
Right, that everything just snaps into place.
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way. An empty field just grows weeds.
What you want to grow requires intentional, consistent systems. Watering every moment is really about the daily inputs.
The habits.
Yeah, it's the unglamorous, repetitive work of habit building. Growth is a slow biological process that only becomes visible over time through sustained effort.
Wait, hold on. I need to stop you there and push back on something we covered earlier.
Okay, go for it.
We're talking about God as this gentle gardener watering the vines, but verses 7 through 11 talk about beating altars to dust, turning a defensed city into a desolate wilderness, and women setting withered branches on fire.
Right.
If I am trying to build trust in God's care, this sounds terrifying. Like, how is leaving my city desolate a form of care?
It sounds terrifying if you equate your entire identity with the altar you built.
Oh, Interesting.
We have to distinguish between toxic shame, which is destructive, and healthy refinement, which is what the text is actually describing. Notice the text explicitly says God strikes in measure.
Right, he holds back the rough wind.
So he is limiting the destruction. He's calibrating it. Think about what a modern altar is. I mean, it's not a literal stone block in your backyard.
No, obviously not.
A modern altar is your career obsession. It's a toxic coping mechanism. It's an ego structure you built to protect yourself. Those altars are bad inputs that block good outcomes. You cannot grow healthy neural pathways or new habits while clinging to the structures that kept you sick.
That makes the imagery of the chalkstones so much more visceral. Like, chalk is basically dust. It washes away in the rain. It completely loses its structural integrity.
Exactly.
So God isn't just knocking the altar over so you can rebuild it later. He's turning the very material of your bad habits into dust so they cannot be reused.
It's about creating space. When the text talks about a defensed city becoming desolate and calves feeding on withered boughs, it's describing the painful but necessary death of your old defense mechanism.
The walls have to come down.
Right, the walls you built to keep people out have to become desolate before a vineyard can be planted there.
We tend to overcorrect when we face discipline or failure, don't we? Like, we make a mistake, we fail at a new habit, and our instinct is to experience this toxic shame.
We just want to give up.
Yeah, we burn our own vineyard down and say, I am just a failure. We completely abandon the process.
But the psychology of the text actively fights against that shame. Understanding that God acts in measure is the key to trusting him. His discipline is not a sweeping, uncontrolled rage.
It's targeted.
Highly targeted. It's a pruning process. So when you face the consequences of your actions or when your false altars collapse, you don't have to fear that God is abandoning you. His ultimate goal is for you to, quote, blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with fruit.
He wants you to yield tangible, positive outcomes in your relationships and your work. He's creating the exact environment, sometimes through the protection of the sword and sometimes through the painful pruning of the altars for you to actually thrive.
Right. So you have fumigated the house, you've torn out the rotten drywall. What does the rebuilt house actually look like?
That brings us to the great trumpet in verses 12 and 13. The text talks about gathering the perishing from Assyria and the outcasts from Egypt.
Let's decode that for a second.
Yeah, because if we aren't talking about ancient geography, what are Assyria and Egypt to a modern listener?
Well, historically, those were places of captivity, slavery, and exile for the Israelites. So psychologically and practically for you, Assyria and Egypt represent the parts of yourself you have abandoned.
Wow.
They are the places where you feel permanently exiled from your own potential or trapped in the slavery of your own bad habits.
And the promise here is that rebuilding is deeply intentional. I mean, you might look at a situation in your life like a shattered career path, a broken marriage, maybe your own mental health, and think it's permanently broken. You might feel like those pieces are just lost in Egypt forever.
But the text insists that restoration is possible, provided it is directed. What was scattered can be brought back.
There is a detail in verse 12 that is just incredible. The gathering happens one by one.
That's the best part.
Right. Think about the parts of your life you feel are permanently exiled. The text isn't saying God uses a giant impersonal broom to sweep up the mess of your life into a pile.
The intimacy of that phrase changes the entire dynamic. Because if you have a massive, cosmic, great trumpet blowing, calling people from nations away, you expect an epic, faceless crowd.
Like a huge stadium.
Exactly. But the actual mechanism of the gathering is meticulous.
It tells you that God is not sitting in some distant control room pulling a lever to fix humanity en masse. He knows exactly which broken pieces are yours. He is intimately, personally involved in picking up those individual pieces one by one to repurpose them and bring you back to a place of peace.
And when you realize that the God who possesses the strength to slay the Leviathan is also the God who will carefully pick up the shattered pieces of your life one by one, your trust in him fundamentally deepens.
Absolutely.
He is as meticulous in his restoration as he is overwhelming in his protection.
So let's distill all of this down to the core framework we've extracted from these sources today. It essentially comes down to a dual mandate for how you operate your life.
First, you have to stop managing the problem.
Right. You cannot just paint over the termites. You must confront the persistent threats directly. Take hold of his strength and slay the Leviathan.
But you can't stop at the empty field.
No. The second part of the mandate is that you must invest consistent, daily effort into cultivating what matters. You water the vineyard every single moment.
You allow the false altars to be crushed into chalk? Recognizing that the temporary desolation of your old defense mechanisms is just the creation of space for new growth. You accept refinement over destruction.
Understanding Isaiah 27 completely transforms how we view God's involvement in our daily lives. I mean, he is not a distant observer. He is both the fierce protector who wields the sword against what threatens you and the devoted caretaker who waters your roots night and day.
And it requires an enormous shift in perspective to accept both the sword and the water.
It really does. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today regarding that shift. Think about the sheer patience required to let a vineyard grow.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right, because a sword swing takes a fraction of a second. It is an event. But a vineyard takes seasons. It's a process. Realize that your growth, your restoration, and your ability to produce fruit are measured over a long stretch of time, not in single fleeting moments of failure or success. Give yourself and the process the time it deserves.
The gardener is not in a rush, but he is always working.
Beautifully said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We've explored the ancient blueprint and translated the modern mechanics of change. Now the rest is up to you. How will you apply this information in your life?